Welcome to the Bell of Vendée. Today's editorial is titled, "The Triumphant Church Comes to the Rescue." Today we bring you a message full of hope and strength. Despite the attacks against the Catholic Church, from cancellations of priests to the prohibition of the Tridentine Mass, there is great news to share, an increase in baptisms within the Catholic Church. Yes, no one can defeat Christ, and the good news is that the Church is experiencing a global revival in traditional sectors, and there is nothing that can stop it. Despite efforts to impose a new church, a synodal church, modern and watered down, the reality is that the Church of Christ, the Church of always, the Church of the Saints, continues to grow. The number of adult baptisms in France and Belgium is increasing significantly. In France, adult baptisms increased by 30% from 2023 to 2024, reaching 7,135, and teen baptisms also increased. In Belgium, adult baptisms have almost doubled in the last decade. Studies and specialized surveys in Europe and the United States tell us about this revival. You can see this data in the links we've left in the video description below. The increase in adult baptisms in France and Belgium is linked to a return to more traditional practices and values within Catholicism. This phenomenon is not only a response to a spiritual need, but also a manifestation of the search for a sense of belonging and roots in the Catholic faith and culture, especially among young people. In France, initiatives such as SOS Calvaire, which is dedicated to restoring roadside crucifixes, have captured the imagination of many, attracting young people seeking a sense of purpose and connection with their religious heritage. This movement reflects a desire to reclaim and preserve Christian heritage, which is seen as an integral part of the nation's cultural and spiritual identity. Furthermore, symbolic events like the upcoming reopening of the Cathedral of Notre Dame de Paris for worship have awakened the need for the experience of Christ. These trends indicate that the resurgence of adult baptisms is related to a reaffirmation of traditional values and practices in response to a modern society in search of stability and spiritual meaning. In places like Indonesia, India, and Africa, Catholic communities that practice the traditional faith, faithful to the principles of always, are seeing impressive growth. The National Catholic Reporter article titled "Growth and Decline in the U.S. Catholic Church" analyzes both the growth and decline of the Church in the United States. It finds that the increase in the faithful is primarily in Hispanic communities and parishes with traditional practices, which are experiencing growth in contrast to other dioceses. In Indonesia, on the other hand, Catholic communities have increased in number, and their devotion to liturgical tradition and frequent reception of the sacraments has borne fruit. This is not a coincidence. People are looking for the unadorned truth, the faith of the martyrs, the one that remains firm despite the times. Even in Africa, where the fervor for the faith is palpable, the revival of traditional devotion is echoing. Traditional churches are full, while more modern churches, those that follow the progressive agenda, struggle to keep their faithful. In contrast, in Spain and France, young people organize pilgrimages of several days with masses in Latin and young priests wearing cassocks. But on the other hand, we have to be clear and firm. Modernism is the great enemy. The Synod of Synodality, which has been taking place, is trying to reset the Church. They want to create a church tailored to the ideologies of the modern world, diluted, without firmness, and without the strength of tradition. This attack is presented in a subtle, subliminal, even diabolical way, and is also referred to as the unnoticed shift. They tell us that the world has changed, that the Church must change with it. But what they are really looking for is to extinguish the light of Christ and replace it with a world without direction, without morals, and without the truth that gives us life. However, despite all these attacks, Christ remains the victor. No one can get ahead of him. As St. Augustine reminds us, God is the beginning of all things, and nothing can get ahead of him, neither in time nor in eternity. The history of the Church has shown that God does not lose. And although the enemies of the faith try to break it, the Church continues to advance. The traditional faith, the one that maintains the pillars of liturgy, doctrine, and Christian values, is the one that is growing in the world, and that is a sign of victory. The good news is clear. Christ is not left behind. No one can defeat him. The Church of Christ, the Church of the Saints, the Church of the Martyrs, the Church of always remains the triumphant Church. And although some may want to erase our history and our roots, those roots are more alive than ever. So, to all Catholics concerned about the current direction of the Church, I want to give you a message of hope and strength. We are not alone. The traditional Church is still alive and growing despite everything. It is time to stand firm in our faith, to reject the modern ideologies that want to separate us from Christ, and to move forward with the Church that Christ founded. Remember the words of St. John Paul II, "Be not afraid. Open wide the doors to Christ." The true Church, which is one, holy, Catholic and apostolic, remains the only Church that can offer salvation. Do not be fooled by those who seek to take away Christ's power. No one can defeat Christ. He is the master of history, of the Church, and of our lives. Praise be to Jesus Christ, forever be praised. This was the Bella Vendée. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with everyone who needs to hear this great news. The victory of Christ is closer than we think. Long live Christ the King, long live the Church of always, and long live the Virgin Mary. For he must reign until he has put all his enemies under his feet. Corinthians 5:25. Goodbye, beloved warriors in the Lord.